The Detroit Pistons started two big men against the Cleveland Cavaliers over the weekend. How did it go, and was it promising for the Pistons' future? We're going to talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Use promo code Locked On. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Hamidou Diallo and his improved play and why that makes it somewhat interesting and a little bit confusing for the offseason. We'll also talk about all the injuries that are piling up for the Pistons later on in the podcast. But first, I want to talk with you guys about the big man lineup that we finally got to see in the starting lineup this past weekend. Now, it didn't include Jalen Duren. It didn't include Isaiah Stewart because both those guys are hurt currently still. But over the weekend, the Pistons did play on Saturday against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who also run a two big man lineup. And the Pistons started James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley III in this game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Well, first of all, the first thing I want to say is that it was the perfect team to try this against. Obviously, I think that's really why we saw it, because they were going against the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that is going to be playing Jared Allen, Evan Mobley together. So you kind of have no choice. If they wouldn't have done two big men, they probably would have gotten obliterated much earlier than they actually ended up getting. But so it's going to be interesting to see. The reason why I bring that up, it's going to be interesting to see if they continue to go with the big man lineup now moving forward, or was it just because of that game against the Cavs and that specific lineup that they run over in Cleveland. Second thing I get out of this game that I want to tell you guys about, Marvin Bagley has played really well since returning from his injury over the last 4 games. He has 3 20-point games. He's averaging 17.5 points, 13.0 rebounds, all in 26 minutes a game. He's shooting 55% from the field. Not very well from 3, not very well from the free throw line. But in just 26 minutes a game, he's averaging 17 and 3. Now, I don't want that to become the bar for him. I don't think it's sustainable for him to continue to be this damn productive in that little of time. But what I will say is that what he's done over the last 4 games has been really impressive, because rebounding has not been a big strength of his, and neither has defense. And rebounding over this stretch has actually been very strong. He's playing very physical. He's fighting. He's leaving it all out there on the glass. I've actually been really impressed with how much he's fighting on the glass and how strong he's been with his rebounds. He's not getting the ball knocked out. Ball's not getting tipped in the air, whatever. He's going up, snatching it, and bringing it down with ferocity. So I really like that that component to Marvin Bagley's game over the last 4 games. And then to move into the Cleveland game, he played some of the best defense I've seen him play in his time with the Pistons. At least, at the very least, as a rim protector. Maybe not in totality. Maybe not. Maybe there's been some other games when he had some better reps switching out. Was more consistent start to finish in like drop coverage, etc. Maybe so in that area. But when it comes to rim protection, this is the best game I've seen him play for the Pistons. And there's 2 ways to look at it. One, I kind of want to look at him and James Wiseman both did a great job protecting the rim, I thought, in this game. They fought really hard against a big man lineup that is pretty damn good. They're a really good team, an elite team, you could say. And both of those guys, Jared Allen is an all-star type of player. Evan Mobley will be eventually an all-star type of player. Those guys are really damn good. So that's a tough matchup. But James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley both combined for 5 blocks in this game. And I think that it was aided a lot by the fact that the 2 big men on the other side were not going to be spacing the floor out. So when one big man would get the ball, let's say Jared Allen's going up against James Wiseman, he's around the rim. Marvin Bagley was doing a great job of having some weak side, help side rim protection. Vice versa with James Wiseman. They both had some really good weak side rim protection for the other guy, because when one of the bigs on the other team would get it, the other big would be in like the dunker spot. So they're kind of like roaming around the paint, and they did a really good job frustrating them. If I would say so myself. Evan Mobley, I believe in the first half, he was 2 of 9, I think. He wasn't playing well in the first half. Now in the second half, they kind of took off and just, eventually just really put the pressure on the Pistons and took off. But in that first half, I thought they played really well as a tandem, and they were trying their best. I don't think they were outplaying those two guys, but I think they were doing their absolute best, and it was actually impressive. They were fighting, they were playing hard, they were getting physical with those guys. I'm sure a lot of people thought going into this game, the Pistons were just going to get, the other team was going to be more physical than them. The Cavs are a big team. They're the best defensive team in the NBA. They're really damn good. So I'm sure everyone thought going into the game, hey, Pistons are just going to get pushed around out there. And it ended up happening in the second half. I'm not going to lie. But in that first half, they were fighting really hard, specifically the two big men. And I think they deserve credit for that, because this is not an easy matchup, especially for two young guys who usually struggle on defense, and James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, two guys who usually aren't great rebounders. For them to go out there and combine for more rebounds than Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen had 16 rebounds. James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley had 22. For them to go out there and do that, I thought they just played as hard as they possibly could. And James Wiseman didn't have a great game. He was 1 of 6. But despite all that, I thought they did as much as they could against a very tough matchup that they had. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for it, especially Marvin Bagley. When it comes to the future of the two big man lineup, I'm interested to see, like I said earlier, one, if this was just because of the Cavs, if they're going to run it moving forward in the starting lineup, that is. And secondly, will it look as intriguing when you're going against, let's say they go against two bigs, but one of them is a stretch big, or they go against a team that's not running two bigs, they're running a center and then 4 guys that can shoot, or even 5 guys that can shoot. Will it be as intriguing? Because I think some of the part of why it was so intriguing against the Cavs is, like I said earlier, both those guys were parked around the rim. So each of the Pistons big men were able to kind of, roam around the rim and provide weak side help rim protection. That's how they got a lot of their blocks, being able to just roam around. And when the guy went up, they came from the weak side and would get the block shot. Now, what happens when you go against guys who aren't just roaming around the rim? What happens when Marvin Bagley or James Wiseman, or if Stu or Duran is healthy? What happens when you're going against 4 guys that can shoot and they have your big man spaced out to the corner? Now they have to go one-on-one against one of your bigs. Does it look as intriguing then? Do the Pistons hold up defensively then? Can they make the rotations? We probably don't see as much weak side rim protection in that scenario. So I that's the part I'm not concerned about. I'm just interested to see, which is why I hope the Pistons run the two big man lineup against like normal NBA teams. I don't think a ton of NBA teams run 2 bigs. I think a lot of teams in the East do. But if they were to go against a team that does not run 2 bigs and they go out there with their 2 big man lineup, how effective can it be defensively? I don't know if it would be good. I don't know if it would be bad. I think it's just a really good question to ask. What happens when you're not just allowed to stay around the rim? You have to be on the perimeter. You have to switch out. You have to make rotations. You have to do all that kind of stuff and be more of a conscious defender rather than just being able to react to shots around the rim and just go up and try to snag it out the air. So that's the one thing that I think is interesting. But look, the Pistons ended up losing this game against the Cleveland Cavaliers by like 24 points. They were almost down by 40 at one point. It really got out of hand in the second half, but that was a lot to do with it. I mean, they were really shorthanded. Killian Hayes ended up getting hurt at halftime too. They're already without Bojan, Stu, Duran. Jane Ivey didn't have a good game. Like, it was a lot of stuff that went wrong for the Pistons as the game went on that just really was kind of out of their control. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And also the Cleveland Cavaliers are a really good team. And as the game went on, they started putting more and more pressure on the Pistons and really suffocated them. So I think that's why I got a hand. But I do think the first half, specifically the first quarter, was pretty intriguing if you're a fan of the two big man lineup. I thought those guys played actually decently well in the first half. So let me know what you guys thought about that two big man lineup. What you guys have thought about how Marvin Bagley has played since returning from his injury. Let me know all that in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, I want to talk about Hamidou Diallo, who has played really, really well for a while now. Talk about his play and then what it signals for the future. I think that's going to be an incredibly interesting conversation to have. Stay tuned for that. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. So let's say, for example, the NFL is still going on. Let's say there's still NFL games, and you want to take the over on, let's say, Jared Goff's passing yards. You want to take the over on DeAndre Swift's receiving yards. And the same night, the Pistons play. You want to take the over on Jaden Ivey's assist. You want to take the over on Killian Hayes' steals. We can put that into the exact same entry with PrizePicks. It's why it's my favorite daily fantasy option out there. You pick 2 to 6 players to see if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and believe it or not, there are more sports. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy, safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So Hamidou Diallo has played really well for the Detroit Pistons. There's no hiding it. And you guys know I've been very skeptical of Hamidou Diallo. And I think I tweeted this out earlier last night, I think it was. I think part of the reason why that I've been so skeptical about Hamidou Diallo is, at first, at the beginning of the year, he just wasn't playing well. That's first. And then second, he's just a very unique and unorthodox type of player. He's really like a 6'5" power forward. He's like a 6'5" center. That's basically what he is. And he's really good at what he's good at. It's just so I don't think there's really any other player like him in the NBA. He's so unique. And for a while, it was hard for me to see how that fits into a winning situation, how you can fit around that. But now I've gotten to the point where it's like, look, man, I am curious to see how you can fit around his unique play style. But at the end of the day, he's producing to a point where I feel like you almost kind of have to just go into it like, look, if he's going to produce like that, we give him the chance and we figure that out later. I feel like that's basically what you arrived at this point with him, because he's playing so well over the last 25 games or so. And really, since he really started getting rotation minutes again, but over the last 25 games specifically, he's shooting 12 points. He's having scoring, my goodness, 12.6 points a game, 4.0 rebounds. He's shooting 62% from the field, 62% as a guard. Now, that's because all of his shots come within 3 feet of the rim. But it really shows just how elite of a finisher he is. I'm over at Synergy.com, and they have his numbers for offensively, shooting-wise, and then at the rim. So as a shooter, he's one of the worst shooters in the entire NBA. And all jump shots, he's 9th percentile. Catch and shoot, 3rd percentile. Unguarded, he is worst in the entire NBA on unguarded shots or jumpers. Dribble pull-ups, 25th percentile. So he's an awful shooter. But then you turn around, you look at how great of a finisher he is. At the rim, 83rd percentile. With the type of volume he's at, that makes him one of the best finishers in the entire NBA. He's at 83rd percentile with 228 looks at the rim. It's 62% of his offense. 62% of his offense. That's insane volume for him to be as good as he is around the rim. He's one of the best finishers in the entire NBA. And then go along with this, over the last few weeks, I got to give it to him. He's been much better defensively. He's been much more locked in. You guys remember before the season, I used to talk about him defensively for the Pistons. And I'd say he gambled too much. He played with his hands too much. He wasn't actually a good defender. He was too much he took too many risks, and it hurt your defense way too often. Well, guess what? Guess what you've seen from him over the last few weeks? You haven't seen as many chances he takes. He hasn't been taking a lot of risks to end up hurting the team. And when he does take his risks, they're more calculated. he's making the right decisions on which ones he should be going after, which steals, which passes should he be going after, and which ones does he just need to play defense on. I think he's been better with that. His point of attack defense, I think he's been better at the point of attack. I don't think he's great point of attack, but I think he's been much more concentrated on that end of the floor. And especially defensively, my biggest critique for him was how bad of a defender he was off the ball before this season. He was horrible off the ball defensively. I don't think he's great still. I don't think anyone on the team is great defensively off ball yet. However, I think he's become good enough to where he's not constantly jumping off on your screen all the time. And if you're not jumping off the screen all the time for me defensively with how you mess up off ball rotations, you have to be doing a pretty good job. That's usually my rule of thumb. If you're playing off ball defense and you're not jumping off the screen to me as making a major mess up, you must be doing fine. So I think he's been doing fine on that end as well. And the numbers kind of back that up. When he's on the floor for the Pistons this season, their defensive rating is a 109.6. With him off the floor, it's 119.8. Their defense is 10 points better with him on the floor. He's been really good for the Pistons, man. Really good. He has the second best on-off net rating of any Piston besides Alec Burks. He has a on-off difference of plus 10.4. He's been really good for the Pistons, man. And look, like I said earlier, he can be as unique of a player as I talked about. He can be an unorthodox. He may make some questionable decision making. He can't shoot. But when you're as good as what when you're as good as he is at what he does around the rim, when you're as good of a finisher and he is, and how he just makes things happen, not just in the half court getting to the rim, how he's been smarter. They found a role for him. They're letting him know, we don't want you to shoot jumpers. We don't want you shooting catch and shoot shots. Instead, we want you cutting to the rim. We want you in the dunker spot, and we want you to thrive in that role. Honestly, it makes me think how much better other players on the team, how much better younger players would look on this team if they were given just a certain role to do and they weren't asked to do anything else. Because that's what they've done for Diallo, and it's worked perfectly for him. He's been amazing in this role. He's been amazing in transition. He's been amazing in the dunker spot. He's been amazing as a play finisher. He's not someone who's going to create plays offensively in the half court. He's not going to make the right pass. He's not going to be the playmaker, whatever. But he is probably the best play finisher on this team. And when you say play finisher, it's when someone else can create an advantage for a player. Who's the best at finishing that off? They have some players that can create advantages. Cade, obviously, when he's healthy. Jay and Ivy, Killian Hayes. Those guys are nice passers. They can create advantages for other players. Hamidou Diallo probably is the best play finisher on this team because of how good of a finisher he is around the rim and how smart he's been with his cuts around the rim and knowing where to be and what he needs to do. So he's been great, man. He's been great, and he deserves a ton of credit. And he's proven me wrong. Just because he's unorthodox doesn't mean he can't be a good player. And I think he's proven at this point that with his contract up this season, there's a legitimate argument to be had that he needs to be re-signed. However, now we move into the discussion about the future, which is the most interesting conversation I think we can have about Diallo and the rest of the Piston players. So I want you guys to follow me with this. I've talked about this a lot on Twitter and some spaces. So follow me over on Twitter if you over at Kuka Hill if you want to be a part of the spaces. I just do them randomly when I'm bored. But just follow me along here, okay? It'll make sense at the end. Next year, let's just assume this lineup. It could be different, obviously. Who knows? But let's just assume this. Next year, you got Cade, Ivy, Bojan, a first-round pick, and Duren in the starting lineup, okay? I think that's fair to assume. Now, again, Bojan could not be here, but he could be traded. If he does get traded, it will be for like another player or another pick, so that'll be another spot. So let's just go with that, okay? Cade, Ivy, Bojan, the first-round pick they draft, and Duren. That's your starting lineup, okay? Then off the bench, let's do Killian, Burks. Burks could be traded as well, but he probably would be traded for another pick or a player, okay? So, again, just follow me here. Just assume this. You got Killian, Burks, Livers, Stu, Wiseman as your backup five. That's 10 players. And that's not naming two other players who have been playing for the Pistons this year in Bagley and in Hamidou Diallo. So even though Diallo is playing this well, the question I continue to ask is, what's his role for this team moving forward if they decide that, okay, he's playing well enough to where he needs to be a part of our future, at least next season. Maybe not hardcore core, but like part of the team moving forward kind of thing. What's the route to that? And before anyone says, oh, just get rid of Killian, Killian's not opening up minutes on the wing for anybody, okay? So even if you get rid of Killian, which they could do, he's not opening up minutes for Diallo, for Livers. Like, he's not the solution to that problem. So, and we know how high they are in Livers. Troy Weaver has come out and talked about how high they are in Livers. So I think Livers is 100% going to be in the rotation next year. Stu as well, and Wiseman is going to be in the rotation. So who's losing minutes here? Who's not going to be in the rotation? Is it Burks? Are they going to trade Burks? If they trade Burks, I think I've been looking at this. I think it's pretty interesting using Burks in that second round pick to move back up into the first round. If they do something like that, that's another guy that's going to be in the rotation. So at this point, you want to give all the credit to Hamidou Diallo, but at the end of the day, it comes down to a numbers game. Who's not fitting into this? If you guys don't think it's Diallo that falls out, let me know who you think it is. Because like I said, you got Cade, Ivy, Bojan, first round pick Duren, starting lineup. And again, even if you trade Bojan, you're not trading Bojan for nothingness. Like, you're getting stuff in return. You're getting a player in return. So someone's feeling that too. Go to the bench. You got Killian, Burks. Maybe Burks leaves, but you're probably trading him for another player. Livers, Stu, and Wiseman. And that's not even including Bagley. So that's the thing I'm really interested to see this offseason is with how well Diallo's playing, do they make an effort to make a rotation spot open for him next season? And who is it that is coming at the cost of that? That's the question I have. I think that it's a fine problem to have, but I don't think it was necessarily a problem that they thought they were going to have before this season. I don't think they necessarily thought, especially at the beginning of the year, that Diallo would be forcing their hand at this point where they're like, all right, well, now we're just running out of numbers. We might have to find a way. We have to find any kind of way to get him minutes, and who's going to have to leave then? So let me know what you guys think about that. Who's going to be the odd man out? Because someone's going to have to be. Is it going to be Diallo, or do you think he's overtaken somebody to where they should be out? Do they trade Burks, you think, somehow for a future pick and don't take anything back so Diallo can have his spot? Who knows? Just let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, the injuries are starting to pile up for the Pistons. We have more injuries coming up before their game against the Portland Trail Blazers on Monday. We're going to talk about those. So stay tuned for that. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise the taste, then man, I got the thing for you. You got to try Built Bar. With Built Bar, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious that you won't think that they're actually good for you, but they are. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy for you. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been telling you to go to Built Bar or Built.com to get your Built Bars, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart, walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up the 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. So now you can go to Built.com, you can go to Walmart, or you can go to Sam's Club to try the best tasting protein bar ever in Built Bar. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Before we talk about the injuries, I do want to say this just to wrap up that last segment we were talking about with Diallo and this offseason outlook. I wanted to mention this salary cap number. So Kyle Metz, he's a contributor over the Detroit Bad Boys. My goodness, I almost fumbled over my words there. He's a contributor for Detroit Bad Boys. He's a salary cap enthusiast. That's his thing. He's a big salary cap guy. He gets into the salary cap stuff. So he's one of the guys I go to for anything involving the salary cap. Anyways, his estimated salary cap for the Pistons this offseason, when you get rid of all the cap holds and assuming that the Pistons do bring back Burks and Livers, the Pistons should have around $28.7 million in cap space this offseason. That's assuming that they get their first-round pick as well. It could be up a little bit higher. It could be a little bit lower, depending where they get that first-round pick. So my point is, with $28.7 million, if they do try to bring back Diallo, I'm assuming he's going to get $8 to $10 million, maybe even a little bit more. So if you decide to go that route, then you're talking about only having around 16, maybe $17 million. And what happens if the Pistons trade for another first-round pick? They use Bojan to get a first-round pick, or they use Burks to get a first-round pick. That's going into that salary cap too. Even though if you trade Bojan for a first-round pick, you can't offset because Bojan's at a $20 million contract right now. But that's just all kinds of things you have to take into account. That yes, Diallo's playing really well, and he might have played so well that they have to include him in the future. But I just want to let you guys know that if you guys are doing that, which is fine. If you want to say Diallo's part of the future, they have to be signed. That's completely fine. He's played like it. Just know what that means as well. You can't say Diallo and then also say, oh, we need to go out there and make all these big signings. Like, that's probably not good. That can't happen. So just know that all the things that go with it. I'm just trying to inform you of all the things that will have to come along with it. Guys that will have to fall out their rotation. Someone has to go. And then also salary cap wise, it does take away some of their cap space. And they may not be able to do is all these big moves that a lot of you guys have been wanting to do. So just wanted to throw that out there. Right now, I think the Pistons are probably in a boat where they probably have to get Diallo back. If I had to pick right now, I probably would move Burks and try to find a way of moving him without taking a player back that really matters. Even though there are some guards that I've been talking to people about at the end of the first round that I really would like next to Killian Hayes in the backup unit. If they could use Burks in that 32nd pick or wherever they'll end up and get back up into the first round, I think that could be interesting too. But I don't know, man. It's just tough because Diallo, you've spent so much time into developing. You've invested so much into him, not assets-wise. They only trade like a few seconds. But with how much time you've invested into him for him to actually become a fine player, which he's become, it'd be tough to then let him go after you invested all that. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting how to decide what to do with Diallo's situation and then the team around it. So it's going to be really interesting. But anyways, Pistons are dealing with a ton of injuries, man. Ton of injuries. And it's making the season tough, man. It's making the season tough. There's only 20 games left for the Pistons. And it's all we want to see. We want to see the team healthy. We want to see the young guys play and see if guys can get it going. So, like, Bojan's out. I don't think that matters too much to a lot of people. They want to see the young players. That opens up minutes for Livers. Livers is back healthy, though. Jalen Duren, he's out still against the Portland Trailblazers with his ankle injuries. Isaiah Stewart, also out with his right hip. James Wiseman took a really nasty, awkward fall against the Cavs, and now he's questionable with left knee injury. Killian Hayes, after playing a really good first quarter, came out in the second quarter, didn't look right. Then the third quarter, didn't start the half, came back out into the game, didn't look right out there, immediately came right back out there, I think a minute and 39 seconds, said his left hand was numb. He had an MRI, or they had some x-rays. They said it was clean, but they're getting an MRI to see if there's anything else wrong with it because he did say it was numb. So now that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys for the Detroit Pistons who could potentially all be out against the Portland Trailblazers. Remember, just recently, we had Jane Ivey out with personal reasons, so he missed a game recently. And we just had Isaiah Livers return from injury. He was out for a few games. And now if Wiseman also is out with Duren, with Bojan, with Stu, the Pistons front court, they might be playing me. I might be getting a call here soon. I'm going to be out there for the Pistons playing in their front court. It's going to be tough. You're going to be down a lot of players. And the tough thing about this, the worst thing about this, for guys like Duren, for guys like Stu and Killian, for guys like Wiseman, they really need these final 20 games for them. Like, they need these games. They need to be playing in these games. Need to get these reps. Need to get in a groove, play better, or either play better or continue playing well and get better. Like, they need these games. This is what these games are for. These last 20 games aren't for veterans like Alec Burks or Bojan or any of these guys. These minutes are for, these last 20 games are for guys like Jalen Duren, for Isaiah Stewart, for James Wiseman, for Killian Hayes, for Jane Ivey, Isaiah Livers. Like, this is what these games are for. And the fact that so many of those guys that these games are actually for are hurt and missing games and playing games injured. It's like, it's tough. It's tough, man. So you hate to see it. I hope that these guys are healthy and able to play. The ones who are questionable, Killian Hayes and James Wiseman, I hope they're able to play against the Portland Trailblazers. I hope Stu comes back soon. I really hope Duren comes back soon so we can at least see Duren play with James Wiseman. I'd love to see that. And we can get a real idea of what they're envisioning with this front court. So you just have, and that's the other thing that's tough about it. You haven't been able to see what their real plan is since getting James Wiseman because everyone's been hurt in the front court. So it's been tough, man. It's been tough. Hate to see injuries, but that's where we're at right now. So hopefully these guys get healthy soon. Hopefully Killian and James Wiseman, they can play against the Trailblazers because they need these reps. So is what it is. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button over at the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Go Pistons. Peace out.